Hello, everyone. It's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer. Welcome to the Development Hell podcast, and the movie club is back at it again. We got Vinnie, we got Kevin, we got Matt, we got Jim, we got Joe, and we're here to celebrate the Oscars. Yes, this is March, and the Oscars are. I guess this will be like a week and a half from when the Oscars, or no, like a couple days before the Oscars actually happen. And we wanted to celebrate by looking at a Best Picture winner of the past. And we turned things back to 1960 with Billy Wilder's The Apartment. And this film won 5 Academy Awards. Duh, Best Picture, just said that. But also won Best Director for Billy Wilder, Best Writing for Billy Wilder. Billy Wilder won a lot of Academy Awards for this movie. Also won art direction for a black and white film, and film editing had other nominations as well, including 3 acting nominations. But this film focuses on the zany adventures of a Manhattan insurance clerk who basically blends out his apartment for an F shack for all the guys that are more more powerful at his job. And then once one woman who's caught up in all of this winds up trying to kill herself, he tries to nurse her back to health. And yes, this is indeed on IMDb considered a holiday romance, romantic comedy. It's a comedy. It's a comedy. Joe has some feelings, but he's not the first one next to me this time around, so he has to wait to share his thoughts. But let's go around the horn and talk about what our general thoughts are and how many times we've seen this film before. But Vinny, you get to go first.
Alrighty. Well, I've never seen The Apartment. This is actually one that's been on my list for a while, and I'm glad I finally had an excuse to watch it. So I won't go too far into it because I want to save some stuff for the episode, but I will say I very much enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a very warm movie. I I really liked how like I really liked how like even though it dealt with even though it dealt with heavy topics such as such as suicide, extramarital affairs, and unrequited love. Even though how it dealt with those topics, the movie really did find a nice balance between being poignant and being humorous, and that really was reflected in the performances from Shirley MacLaine and and Jack Lemmon. Like they were both charming in their roles. They were heartbreaking. I really liked uh Shirley MacLaine's first scene when she's in when she plays an elevator operator. I really liked how her first scene, she's like pushing the button. She does like that little like motion with her hands when she's like going up. She pushes the button. It was just like it was like a very like sweet introduction to her character. And at that moment, I knew I was gonna like whatever journey I went on with her and Jack Lemmon. And that's all I'll say for now. But yeah, I really like adored this movie.
Awesome. Kevin?
Yeah, this was also my first time seeing this. Uh, so actually, I was going to nominate this movie when we were doing our votes for this episode. I believe it went to Jim. Jim actually ended up nominating this one. So I ended up seeing it anyway. I've been wanting to watch this one for a while. Just catching up on some Best Picture winners I've never seen. I really had no idea what this was about going into it. I didn't even look up a synopsis for it or anything before we watched it. Um, but I'd heard good things about it in the past, and for me, Shirley MacLaine was the standout. The entire arc her character went on for me was unexpected, and I love the way they handled it. I would say I know this movie is kind of billed as a comedy. I can't really pin like a particular genre on it if I had to assign it one myself, but it was pretty funny, and they handled the delicate subject matter really well for the time. I thought I thoroughly enjoyed it.
All righty. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I didn't do any research on the movie beforehand. So while I was watching it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, so this is gonna be like a comedy and there's gonna be kind of like, I don't know, like office banter, maybe kind of like people like slipping on banana peels and blushing or whatever like that, even though it's in black and white. And then I got a movie that like threw in your face like worker exploitation and gender politics and mental health or illness. Because there was like zero treatment, including the doctor. Also, what the hell? But I would love to, like when you watch a movie and it's like, oh wow, it's really like you watch a movie like I don't know, like Whiplash or something, and then you go on YouTube and you see like a breakdown of like, I don't know, like a drummer or like some kind of conductor saying, oh, okay, so like this is actually like these like my specific like thoughts about like the movie or whatever. Instead of watching just like a regular like film review, you actually find someone that actually, I don't know, has like a certain like very specific take. I would love to see some kind of I don't I don't know if like worker exploitation is like political, like Marxist or whatever, but like that would be like, really interesting to see because wow, like it was like hard for me to laugh. I guess because also I've worked in like weird places, not that weird. Well, thank God, because bound
Matt,
boundaries,
are
damn.
you
Yeah,
renting out your apartment?
yeah, I'm projecting right now, but like I was like, man, like this guy's really he's like I don't know, like I was looking at him like I guess the character but also as a metaphor for people that kind of just like take on too much even in the very beginning like oh yeah like I do overtime unpaid multiple times a week just because my boss wants me to like I was like jump through the screen and like I don't know like and give him a hug and then also slap him like the doctor slapped that lady but yeah that was a wild movie um but yeah volleyball back to Shane.
Definitely a lot to talk about. Jim,
First time seeing this movie. It's I didn't do any research either, so like we're all kind of coming from a similar place here, I think. I have a glossary of terms that I didn't know before, Yiddish terms such as nebbish and mishigas and schnook, which I'll have to add to my vocabulary. Agree. I didn't expect suicide. I thought this was going to be a really lighthearted movie, and um, it was not. It was a not lighthearted movie, kind of given a charming treatment, I guess. I thought it was interesting that none of those actor nominations you mentioned actually won
mm-hmm.
an Oscar.
We
Well, an
looked them
Oscar.
up. They
I don't know
were.
about it.
I don't think the performances are performances that stood the test of time, especially
Sure.
compared to this film.
Right. And then my big question for you guys was, how did you feel about rinsing the pasta through a tennis racket?
Not the worst idea.
We were all in our 20s living on our own, right? Supposedly living, at some point of our own, when we're in college or whatnot. I think it kind of comes with the territory. At least it's my impression of it,
I at least had a strainer.
It drove home that he's a bachelor.
Hey, I had a strainer when I was a bachelor. But that was some ingenuity. I'll give him a lot of credit. And Jack Lemmon's also not Italian, so I won't hold it against him. How about you, Joe?
So, as far as this movie, this is my first time seeing this film, but I am challenging myself to watch. Rotten Tomatoes has a list of the 150 essential comedies, and this is on that list. Funny enough, though, another one of those movies on that list that Billy Wilder, is that the director's name? Billy Wilder directed, called Some Like It Hot with Marilyn Monroe and Jack Lemmon. And really good. No, I agree, Jim. Fantastic film. In fact, I was kind of expecting that type of humor when watching this movie because it's kind of like Madcap. It's kind of got like a, kind of a silly premise of guys going undragged in order to, escape these gangsters, and finding out Marilyn Monroe is actually a really good actress, like for the role that she was given, and kept up with the comedy in that movie. But like, so I was kind of looking forward to that in that aspect, but kind of like on the same page that everybody else is going with. the story about, I guess, eh, male toxicity in some ways, right? Where like, especially in the 50s to 60s, this idea of like what it means to be a man, I guess, in society. And it's funny because I was talking to Shane about this last night too. Like, I was thinking if they ever did remake this film, I would imagine that they would, maybe focus more on like today's generation of FOMO and like what it means, like, and the alpha male, like the Andrew Tates of this world, like, oh, you need to ride the Bugatti in order to do this, and oh, you need to have a side chick or another side chick sort of idea, and that maybe Jack Lemmon falls into that idea,
Just get
right?
Andrew Tate to play the Fred McMurray character.
Exactly.
That
And
impression, Joe. That was perfect.
Bugatti, you need to drive the Bugatti. I don't even think that's how he sounds, but anyways, um,
Doesn't matter.
and I'm also bringing that up too because like I was thinking about it in a cliche that happens in a lot of films in the 50s and 40s is that the woman has to be protected, which is kind of there in this film, is like she has her emotions and has to be protected. That's and Shirley MacLaine did a really good job. But the thing is, Jack Lemmon had a very big vulnerability as well. And to show that there's nothing wrong with being able to, you know, express your vulnerability and that there are people out there that share that. In fact, what my nomination for this year is actually similar in tone to this film. It's Marty, and I believe it was a couple of years before this came out. And I feel like that movie does also share a lot in common to this one, in a sense that it does challenge societal norms over like what it means to be a man and to be in a monogamous relationship that has to be there to protect the woman and whatnot. But it's like, no, you can have an even balance. If anything, it's okay for a man to be going through something, as well as the female to be empowered to also help out too. Especially when you can contrast it to that one dickhead, excuse my language, that basically was cheating on the secretary, right? Like that scene where Jack Lemmon's like, why don't you go talk to him, maybe that's going to help. And then he tells her everything to just further push her into her depression. Just like, I felt so bad. It actually made me emotionally cringe hearing that, you know, to the point where I like a good movie that can make you think and make you ponder. And that's what I got when I watched this. So to a point where like I finished it and I was like, yeah, maybe not as much as a comedy like Some Like It Hot, but definitely a really good film. I liked this. Liked it a lot. That's all I gotta say.
This was my third time watching this film, so I guess I'm the only one who watched this and knew what to expect going in. Um, but just Billy Wilder is one of the best filmmakers of all time, period. He had, first off, this was an aspiring director that evaded Hitler and came to America and really hit so many films like out of the park with The Lost Weekend, which I watched for the first time in 2023, which is a harrowing film about alcoholism. Sunset Boulevard is one of my favorite films.
Love that
Love
movie.
that film to pieces. Um, Some Like It Hot, Double Indemnity, which is one of the greatest film noirs of all time. He just had such great range in terms of the films that he could put together and finding the humor in situations and also knowing how to tackle really dark material. And this film does that. Like, there's a lot of fun to be had in the first half of this film. And the second, that scene where Jack Lemmon finds Shirley MacLaine, you feel the energy in the room change. You feel like that scene is heavy. You feel how scared he is in that scene, and like there's real weight to it. Jack Lemmon is such a great actor, and being somebody who grew up in the 90s into the 2000s and now it's 2024, never having, I don't think I watched a single one of his films like in a theater because wasn't like 3-year-old Shane was going to go see Glenn Ross in a theater. But like watching his work is so impressive, and it's the little things about his performance, the way he looks at things and the way he carries his body, the intonation in his voice. Shirley MacLaine, who I only knew in my head as like cranky old lady in movies who's kind of a bitch. in like a lot of her films. She is so charismatic and charming in this film. I fell in love with her immediately when I watched this for the first time. And I didn't realize it was Shirley MacLaine the first time. I'm like, what? And like now it's like you see it, but she's just so charismatic. And the supporting cast, like all of the men in the office play their role so well, but Jack Crucian, who played Dr. Dreyfus, the neighbor, who did get nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this film, he was so good in his interactions and everything, and the way he like jumps into action when he needs to. This film is funny. It deals with some heavy material. The way that it navigates all these complications of, you know, that unfortunate power dynamic between supervisors and employees and how people in power can manipulate that and, get an F shack set up whenever you want it. And acting like you're doing them a favor by paying them. Because they're totally doing them a favor. And the sexism that this film navigates through, and just the Fred McMurray is so good in this as such a piece of shit because there's no remorse, there's no sense of sympathy in this man for how he's just completely using Shirley MacLaine's character throughout this film and prior to this film. And this just has like one of the like just wonderful endings, two leads with like infinite amount of chemistry. And just tonally, Billy Wilder walks that tightrope so perfectly with this film. But I guess thinking about some of the things that really stood out for everybody, it's like, let's start with, say, Billy Wilder and how he was able to navigate being funny, coming up with a comedy, and then tackling a lot of very heavy issues and making that work.
I think one of the main ways that worked so well was how they limited the number of settings in the movie. You're kind of just going back and forth between the office and the apartment, and those are basically the only two places you go. You get kind of invested in everything that's going on because of the way they limit that. I feel that helps.
And on top of that, there's some really impressive camera work and filmmaking to make the most of these limited settings too, because like there's not a whole lot of settings here and it still feels cinematic. This could have easily just felt like a play, but I never once like was watching this film and thought I was watching one, which that's really impressive for a film that has such a limited scope in terms of setting.
I really like the set design for the apartment itself.
Oh, they put in a lot of detail.
Yeah.
And like the lighting of the gas stove, and yes, also the racket in the in the kitchen and everything. But Joe, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was also going to say, like, in answer to your question about it being a comedy, I think a lot of it also does come down to the character. Like, I think in comedies, it's situation, maybe it's the setting that's where you're going to get the comedy from. But I think most of it is, in a sense, over the personalities of the characters. Whereas, the two personalities in particular that are considered the most comedic are Jack Lemmon's character and the doctor character. Whereas it's never even just outright funny. It's just how they're responding to it that, at times can seem a little hilarious. Whereas you think about, at times kind of sad. It's not necessarily, think about the scene with the clicker on TV where, and I think we've all done this, and we probably still all do this in skipping ads when you're watching a video, and I thought it was so cool. It's like, wow, 60, 70 years ago, these guys are doing the same thing we're doing. We're trying to get through like a YouTube video, and he had to do it with it, with his old clicker,
Like, I just spent all this time clicking through all 4 channels and couldn't find anything to watch.
What's the point of the ad blocker? Now I got to open up a new browser in order for me to watch my damn show,
I found the silent button to be very, very useful, like especially watching live sports streaming these past couple days. Shane, I like what you said about the little things. There was one scene in particular that stood out to me for the Shirley MacLaine character, and one for the Jack Lemmon character. So when Shirley MacLaine goes in to meet her man, let's say, she stops and talks to the piano player, who's Like, you don't have to stop and talk to the service, you know, the help. But she appreciates his presence and this song, and she actually stops to try to interact with him a little bit. And I feel like, like if you ask anybody what their red flag is going to be on the first date, it's like, how do they treat the people who are working the establishment? You know what I mean? And then Jack Lemmon's character, he had reason, and maybe not very good reason, to be upset with Shirley MacLaine's character, but he had a lot of emotion going into that climactic scene you mentioned where he finds her in his bed, and you can tell like that's all gone immediately. Like, once he realizes how serious the situation is, he lets go of all that stuff immediately. So like, as far as characters go in this movie, there's a lot of those very small things that kind of tell us who we can trust and who the people are that we should be rooting for in this movie.
Yeah, they made all of the office men in this, like all the higher ups, they're so slimy, and they don't spend a single moment. Every single one of them don't spend a single moment thinking of anybody else. They're all very selfish, and it's sort of very quickly that you're supposed to empathize for Cece, and that like, there's moments where he's like, "Yeah, I was using him the whole time." It's like, we don't believe you for a second. It's like he's trying to put on, like, he is a very emotional man and sensitive man, and that's what I appreciate about him as a character. And Jack Lemmon brings so many layers to that. But like him just trying to put on that, like trying to put it on, or he was like towards the very end where he's like, yeah, I'm actually going on a date with this woman over here, and trying to like pretend that he's not really upset, that he thinks Fran's just gonna go right back with Fred McMurray's character, and then like when he walks over and that woman greets another man, and you're just like, oh, he was just putting on a shield for himself. And it's just like, we can feel for him. But no, every one of these characters has specific aspects about them that are so small details but work so perfectly, and why we care about each of them, or we don't like them and we think they're a jerk. So like, this Billy Wilder is so good at making so many little details pop out in a film. Anything else?
I wanted to give McMurray's character a chance, like probably too many times.
Yeah.
And then I think it was the scene where his secretary, the only reason he leaves his wife is because his current secretary goes to his current wife, and they kind of share what's going on, and that's the only reason he pursues Shirley MacLaine's character at all, is because he's been put into this situation. I feel like that was kind of a breaking point for me, and I was very generous with that character. Like, I really wanted to give him a chance for humanity.
But Jim, as a man, we get really lonely, and just one woman is just not enough.
Well, you know what, with Fred McMurray's character, like, like the whole reason why at the beginning when they agreed to put when they agreed to put Jack Lemmon's character in the running for a promotion, and he eventually gets it, like, you have that moment at the end when Jack Lemmon is talking to Fred McMurray's character, and Fred McMurray, he's saying, Jack Lemmon's saying, I don't want to give you the key to my apartment anymore. And then Fred McMurray is like, he's like, why aren't you giving, why don't you play along with this? We gave you this promotion because we thought you were like a competent worker and such. And then it's like, no, you gave him the promotion because he was giving you access to his apartment. Like, you don't care, but like, you don't care about him as a coworker. You only care about him. You only care about him because of the stuff that he can give you.
And then if you're Jack Lemmon's character in that situation, you'd have to wonder at that point in your character arc that he goes through, how long is this going to last, even if I do take it, right? He can just have someone else give him another apartment.
It's so interesting because that digs even deeper into like workplace and capitalism too, because it's what's what's really valued by people in power.
Your
And
labor.
what, Matt?
I said your labor.
That's the thing though, because it's not his work ethic. It's not what he actually does. He didn't get the promotion because he stays 2 hours late and doing work. We know why he stays the extra 2 hours because people are using his apartment as an F shack. They're just showing up and bringing their ladies there, and it's that kind of thing where it's just it's all about power. It's not really, is it really about making money? Is it really about having the most effective and efficient workers doing certain things so you can progress this company? No. Fred McMurray's character is such an interesting commentary on power and control. And
Well,
it's all about him. He has to be the only one that could have this apartment. When he finds out, even some of these other lower level guys are, just doing their thing and having some fun along the way, no, they can't have fun anymore. And it's just he's the only one that could have access to that. It's what power is. And
well,
yeah.
no, go ahead.
Oh, just the idea of he has this power in this relationship with Shirley MacLaine's character because he's not going to leave his wife. He has all the power in the situation. And it's such an interesting thing because McMurray's character never really loses his composure because he doesn't have to. Even when Baxter or Fran Kubelik get upset, it doesn't really matter to him because they're not going to do anything to him. It's
He's handling his
until
personal.
well,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, it's until Cece's no, I'm done, goodbye, and he doesn't care about the power dynamic anymore. That he actually feels shaken, and it's such an interesting. It's not the most forefront theme that's going on in the film, but it's a really interesting one that there's a lot of details along the way.
But it's interesting because what you said about his character in terms of having power, you know, at the end when he meets with Shirley MacLaine's character on New Year's Eve, and he's confident that he says, oh, I'm gonna leave my wife, we can start our life together, and just in terms about him having all this power, it's it's you really see just how easy it is for him. He has all this power, he has all this money. He can, if he you see if he wants to leave his family, he can leave his family if he wants to because he has all these other resources to back him up if and when he decides to start a new life, which he decides that he's going to do at the end with Shirley MacLaine until she leaves him at the end, and then at that point he realizes, oh, I have all this power, I have all this money, but it turns out I can't have everything that I want.
I like you guys are talking about when you reference power too, because I'm thinking about other movies that have your main character either eventually realize or just this suddenly kind of just wake up and it's oh wait, crap, I need to fight against every single thing that told me that this is the way that life is supposed to be. The movies that are in my head are I'm more angry and and violent, specifically. But even him, just I'm thinking about falling down, or maybe what's that other movie? I guess
Network.
yeah, that too. I
I'm
guess also
mad as hell.
yeah, I guess The Matrix also to an extent too. It would be kind of interesting to think about depictions of people kind of I guess every man kind of people kind of rising up against insert workplace or societal thing, but and then compare it decade to decade. It'll be kind of interesting to see I don't know how that plays out.
Still a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the takeaway. Even with Joker, right? That's still the takeaway. But yeah, no, I thought that was kind of interesting because I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, wow, like when is this guy gonna finally kind of like get his moment where he just like real like because when the guy said like towards the end when his boss said, hey, so can you give me like your key because I threw my key out of like a subway car or whatever like that, so can you give me your key so I can like hook up in your apartment again? And his face dropped, and it was and I even like yelled it at like my TV. I was like, obviously not on your side, like what the hell's wrong with you? Like, and then but his face dropped, and my chest dropped a little bit because I was like, wait, are we gonna do this again? Like, we're like way too deep into the movie to continue to do this. But he was like, no, like I quit my job. I was like, excellent. But yeah, no, I thought like rising up, like who has power? How do they wield it? How do they kind of like keep that power? How do other people kind of like gain their power back? By fighting against it or like finding something else and saying like or just saying like screw it, like I'm not rising up the ranks of this job, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, I'm just kind of like I'm just gonna go my own separate way. um yeah, I thought that was like really chill.
Well,
That was really
and then
yeah.
all and then also in terms of like power dynamics and people exchanging favors for other benefits, like like that really helps make this one moment that I'm gonna talk about like hit really hard. Like at the end of the movie, like as Jack Lemmon is preparing to like oh no he's not at this point, he's not moving out of the apartment yet, but he's I think it's on New Year's Eve when the doctor comes in to borrow ice for the to borrow ice for his New Year's Eve party. He invites he invites Jack over, but Jack says no, like I don't feel like going. But then when he goes to pay the doctor for like for helping him take care of Shirley MacLaine's character, the doctor, he refuses the money because he tells Jack Lemmon's character that he did this, just at like, just as like, just as like a kind thing to do for him. Like it was, he was doing it for a friend. So like, out of all these moments in the movie where you have people exchanging favors for other favors, it's like one small moment at the end when Jack Lemmon's character sees that something nice was done for him, and nothing is expected in return.
No more quid pro quo. Because that's the whole entire dynamic throughout this whole entire film, that CC Baxter's only value perceived in this film is what he offers in terms of his apartment. The apartment means so much to him at the beginning of the film because it is all of his value, and that makes it more powerful when he gives it up at the end. He's taking control, he's taking his identity back, and he badgers his own dignity and reputation throughout this whole entire film. He lets the doctor next door believe that he's sleeping with like 50 different women to keep, the bad acts of his higher ups a secret. He even tells Fran's brother-in-law that it's his fault that she wound up in the situation, which is why it gets decked in the face. But like he did it out of there's so many selfless things that he's doing. Like the fact that like he even like goes out on a park bench and winds up being out there all night, and also some great I'm sick acting going on in those next couple of scenes from Jack Lemmon.
There
So,
really is. He got that
so
nasal
good. It
tone
was so
just right.
relatable.
But but then also another thing, like in terms of like people having power and then also doing nice things for other people. You have that great moment late. Well, I mean, early in the movie, you have the scene during the Christmas party when Fred McMurray's secretary is telling uh what's Shirley MacLaine's character's name, or what's it, Irma?
Fran Kubelik.
Huh?
Fran Kubelik.
Fran. When she's telling Fran, oh, um my boss might like you now, but there have been other women before you, and there'll be more women after you. And then like like in that moment, yeah, like you see her as like a mean type of person, but then at the end, like even though she's fired, she does have some power shift to her because now she's seen how she finally wakes up to like how big of a scumbag he is, and then she ends up and then she makes that secret call to his wife saying, I have some stuff I have some stuff I want to tell you. So now so now so now like she has that power over him, and now and then at the end, when Fred McMurray he thinks he's gonna run off with Shirley MacLaine, that's like not only is that not gonna happen, but he's soon not gonna have a wife to come home to because now she knows like what her husband's been doing behind her back.
Yeah, I found it so interesting. It's the layers in terms of the themes of the film, and it takes escaping from the oppression to be able to realize how much power you actually have and how much value you have. Because you look at that secretary character who certainly did have an affair with her boss at some point, and she's in that same situation where it's like, I'm going to lose my job if I cause any problems. And that's why she doesn't do anything. But because of the system that she's in, her only way of exerting any kind of power is to belittle another woman. And that's the sad thing because that's the toxic system that they're all a part of that makes two women turn against each other instead of realizing that they're both victims of the system. Similar to Cece, the secretary, when she no longer has a job and she's released from that oppression, she has nothing to lose at that point. She's freed. And then she could F up Fred McMurray's life because it's like she doesn't have to worry about being fired. She's already lost her job. That power balance is all gone. And she then has the power because there's nothing, no leverage there anymore. And you have CC Baxter at the end where he's just like, I don't care anymore. You can't do this to me. You don't have any authority over me. I don't work here anymore. And that's such an empowering moment for him. And it just makes everything so much sweeter by the end when Cece and Fran have their little moment with the cards and everything. It just everything that led up to that point, they've unshackled themselves from so many things that have been keeping both of them down. And that's why their connection, so like their connection starts as they're both very charismatic and have great chemistry with each other. You can tell they would make a fun couple. Just like their banter and everything. And you don't see that with Shirley MacLaine and Fred McMurray. That's just a power dynamic. This, they actually seem like they have genuine connection with each other. And you, right at that moment, you're like, I want them to be together. But they have to go through so much and get rid of so much baggage for themselves. And they come together in those moments of him helping her nurse back to health after all of that and realize that, like, them in that little apartment, they get to have their moment. They get to have that dynamic. And by the end, it feels so much more satisfying when they wind up together.
And I do like the way that that dynamic carries out throughout the movie, and I like the way the tone shifts. And as we're following these two particular office workers at that company, one of the things that works really well about the comedy drama dynamic is that the way we see them progress. Like it starts off all lighthearted, and as you mentioned, Fran is going through this arc, and she's got all these things bubbling under the surface that we just don't see in that beginning chapter of the movie. It all seems pretty lighthearted, but we get little glimpses of everything that's going on that's darker that ultimately leads her to want to commit suicide. And it makes you kind of go back and rethink some of those lighter-hearted moments. At least I did. There was a scene in the beginning of the movie that they're all getting into the elevator, and there's this one guy there that gives her a little slap on the ass. And it's kind of weird, but the movie's in that lighthearted tone at the moment. But then you realize this is kind of her whole life. I mean, she's she's being used by men left and right. Uh, they're her superiors, and then she hits that breaking point where it's all falling apart for her. I think the way they handle that shocking tonal shift was really good.
Just unfortunate, consistent sexual harassment.
Yeah, it just all clicks at that scene.
Jim, did you have something you want to say?
Just yeah, was that McMurray's character that actually put his hand on her in the elevator? I thought it was.
I don't remember who it was.
I don't remember.
I wasn't paying attention to who it was at the moment.
I just thought it was interesting, Shane, you mentioned like value. It does say something about Fran, the Shirley MacLaine character, that she realizes she's desirable and she's a catch, for lack of a better phrase, right? So she's not just dating any schmuck, to fall into the language of the movie. Like, she held out for a big fish.
Yep.
But she just kind of, I guess she, in that power dynamic, she doesn't have enough currency to actually make things play out in her favor. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry if you guys had to listen to me eating chips a second ago. I thought I was muted.
Okay. No,
No
it's
worries.
one of those things where it's an interesting point you bring up, Jim, because she went for the biggest fish in what she felt like was the only pond that she could fish in. Where she's stuck in this dynamic, her whole entire life, like Kevin, you mentioned, is her being sexually harassed at work with all these men who sexually find her desirable, but do not give a crap about her as a human being. She's a piece of meat to them. And yeah, she did hold out for the biggest fish because she was the most desirable. Horrible way to put this, piece of meat. And how all the men talk about her in particular shows that point very well. Where when they think that Cece's with her, they're like, oh, good for this guy. And it's just like, that's exactly how they see her. But Cece Baxter doesn't just see her as a very attractive woman. What Shirley MacLaine at the time was a very attractive woman. But he sees somebody he actually has a connection with. But she doesn't see him as a possible option for her. Because I feel like deep down doesn't believe that she could have like a genuine relationship. And that she's just meant to be this fixture in this married man's life, and once she fully commits to that belief, I feel like that's the point where she feels like she's just a pawn in this man's life, and she doesn't see any value in herself, and she winds up trying to commit suicide. And then through all those interactions with Jack Lemmon's character, she comes out of it and realizes a lot more about herself. Matt, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say like even before that, like her like the first like moment where you see her like really resign, at least to me, from what I'm remembering, I was watching the movie, was when she and the head boss were in Lemon's apartment and they had that conversation, and then you see her kind of just like it's almost kind of like all right, whatever, and then she starts taking off her gloves and starts taking off her jacket, which was like also like a really sad scene for like a lot of obvious reasons. But yeah, it's like this there's that resigning of kind of like, so I guess this is the way things this is just the way things have to be. This is the way things are. Like I thought that was pretty I thought that was like pretty sad. And I like there's like a symmetry with the $100 bill when she's like, I don't even want this anymore. Like I don't need this. I thought that was pretty like empowering too. There's still like way more runtime after the $100 bill and envelope thing, but I really like that. But yeah.
So I'd like to point out, Kevin, Joe, and I were watching this stuff, reflecting upon the literal value of money in this movie,
Oh, yeah.
where it's like his rent's $85 a month. And I imagine that Miss Kubelik lives probably in a smaller apartment than he does. So I'd imagine her rent's even less. And Fred McMurray just casually hands her $100 bill. that's like probably almost 3 times her rent, or at least double her rent, like 2 months of her rent. I'm just like, and that's how willy-nilly he is, just, oh, $100. And it's just like, can you imagine somebody just casually handing you 2 months worth of rent?
Well,
Yeah,
Like it
that's
was
well,
lovely.
nothing.
it's funny how you mentioned like casualness because like there's also a way how like he chooses not to face face his own problems because you have the scene at his house on Christmas morning where where um where Cece calls him and tells him, I have I have a friend in my apartment. She tried to commit suicide, and then for McMurray is basically like, this isn't a good time right now. Like I can't really I can't really talk about this. So like he just he kind of like hand at that point, like at that point Fran become for McMurray, Fran becomes too much for him, and he's like, oh, you handle her. I don't want to deal with it right now. Like it's and again, that goes back to the whole power dynamic because since he has seniority over since he has like that type of like seniority over CC Baxter in the company, he feels like he can just shove he feels like he can just shove his problems off to CC, and CC like being lower on the food chain, CC will take care of it.
That's got to be one of the scummiest moments in the movie for sure. Oh, she tried to kill herself? Way to kill the vibes. Why'd you call me with that news?
This Christmas morning, God. That dynamic has so many layers to it because one, Fran is only worth it to McMurray's character when she's a net positive. He doesn't need to put in any effort. He just gets from her. He gives nothing. The money doesn't mean anything to him. So him throwing $100 bills is nothing to him. But her giving up her body and her time and her commitment is all in his favor. When he has to put any effort into it because she's sick, he's like, nope, not my problem. And then what's even worse is he definitely can tell there's something between CC Baxter and Fran, and he's leveraging that of CC. He's like, he doesn't explicitly say it, but you can tell he knows that CC cares about her on some level. And he's like, well, he'll take care of her because he likes her. And I don't have to deal with it. And he'll never have her. So win-win. And that's the even more despicable thing that you can gather from that dynamic is that he does have so much authority in this exchange that he can do something like that.
And you get the impression that even if he didn't trust that that was the case, he's still so used to having so much leverage that that's just how he operates. Everything's a commodity to him. Every human interaction he has in the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys both have a good point there. Like at that point, he still has his social standing, his stability with the family. His wife doesn't know about the affairs, so he's willing to let Fran go. But Shane, I thought that was a really interesting observation that I miss. You think that he was aware that Buddy Boy, by the way, yeah, Vinny, really disrespectful. Just the more I think about it, the more conclusive my opinion is on that. Like the way everybody calls him Buddy Boy all the time, and especially that scene where he just kind of leaves his lover in the care of this underling without any even the overconfidence is kind of appalling, you know?
Which that's an interesting point, Jim, because I guess you could see it two ways. I don't know what's more nefarious, either malicious, is that he knows CC does have feelings, or he's so disconnected and doesn't pick up on literally anything that he wouldn't pick up on the fact that CC likes her. And there's either way you look at it, it's really messed up. And I keep harping on this, but Billy Wilder's screenplay that he wrote with IAL Diamond, who's the co-writer on this. There's just so many layers to everything in this film. And, this is the third time I've watched it and just thinking about all of these things. And this is legitimately the first time I've actually had a conversation about this with anybody. So like all of these ideas coming out, and it's just so much to talk about and so much to process from it. This is why a quote unquote comedy won Best Picture. Because like this is not like Dumb and Dumber comedy. This isn't like just silliness. There's depth upon depth, and it's also really funny.
On that note, I just want to, one of the things that I noticed about this movie that I really enjoyed, and I have seen and enjoyed Some Like It Hot before. Really like them. I'd watch it again anytime. But the physical humor of Jack Lemmon in this movie really got to me.
Yeah.
There's a scene where he's playing sick, and there's something in his pocket. The key's in his pocket, but he's put tissues in his pocket on top of the key.
Yep.
The way he pulls the tissues out of his pocket it's just funny. It's objectively really funny. The way his physical comedy in this movie is really well done.
But yeah, Jack Lemmon is such a talent as a comedian. He does all the dramatic elements of this film so well, but it's like those little things of like him looking so grumpy sitting in that like the park bench, or just the way that he carries himself and like he moves and everything. But he is so funny. And just the way that he handles that racket, trying to strain the pasta and everything. It's just so perfect. There's so many little great things that he does in this film. But Matt, what did you want to hop in with?
I guess I'll do like my final thoughts. Okay, so number one, there's this artist named SZA, SZA, really awesome. If you like hip hop or like R&B, she's really awesome. I bring her up because I was thinking about her music while watching this movie, because the Fran character just dealing with like negative relationships and how kind of like men like mistreating her and disrespecting her, and how that kind of like how that affects her. And that's the character that sometimes like this is kind of puts inside of like a lot of her music, the kind of like the other side of like the aftermath of like what like a negative like string of relationships. What's that look like? Definitely recommend the song "The Weekend." Also recommend the song "Special." Two pretty sad songs, but highly recommend them. I thought they were like some of my favorites. That's one. Two, I think anybody that's watching this review like probably has already seen the movie. But if you didn't see it, you just like heard you heard like all of us like talking about kind of like the comedic aspect of it. It's a funny movie, definitely. Like there's this one thing that he does with like a flower. I'm not gonna spoil the joke, but like he does something with the flower, and he kind of like he just does something with his lapel in his suit. I thought that was pretty funny. But the talk about like mental health and like the issues, that's like a once it happens, that's like an ever present topic for the rest of the running time. So that's like something that's kind of like triggering or something like that. I thought that was kind of interesting. I feel like if this movie came out today, then and if it was maybe like a TV movie or something, it definitely would have had kind of if it was like on HBO Max, like oh like this film depicts like XYZ. So just like if you're okay with that, then watch it. So I thought that was kind of interesting because it was kind of like it was like a pretty big shock. So I thought that was interesting. And then the last thing I'll say is in like a silly way, I was thinking about okay, so I was watching this movie and I was like, man, he's like the quintessential nice guy. And in my head, the moment that I hear nice guy, okay, follow me, okay? I thought of the word incel, and I was thinking about and I was thinking about what if this movie came out, he remade the movie, A, who would play it? And then B, how would they kind of like have like this nice guy, maybe potentially maybe have him kind of like as like an incel that has to at the end of the movie, I don't know, get off of 4chan and I don't know. He has to
Well, if you want an incel, you get Jesse Eisenberg.
Honestly, I was thinking about Eisenberg, and then maybe just because she has short hair for Dune 2, I was thinking of Florence Pugh as Fran.
Honestly, that's a really good bit of casting. If
If
you
you
if you wanted to be truer to this movie, I don't know if Jesse Eisenberg would be a good casting, but like in
Michael
your
Cera,
if you're reimagining of that, that would work. That
yeah.
certainly would work.
Yeah, if we're doing an A24 version of The Apartment, Jesse Eisenberg might be your guy. I was thinking it might be interesting to redo it with the lead being a female role, and
Oh yeah.
like specifically because of the way the neighbors perceive a stud who's bringing girls home all the time, as opposed to a woman who's bringing men home all the time. I maybe that's an interesting thought and not an interesting thing to put on screen. But
I would
You could
watch
do
the
it in an
whole.
You're
interesting
welcome.
I
way.
mean, yeah, I'd
Yeah.
say if it were to be done, that'd be the best way to refresh it, probably.
You have to play Radiohead's "Creep," but like a slow version, like throughout
For
the
the
whole.
trailer.
That's like what they did on the trailer for The Social Network.
Oh, they did that?
Yeah.
If they gender swap all these characters, who's going to be the predatory women in this office?
Well,
Well,
I've
you
been
know,
watching a
well,
lot of
well,
The Office lately, like I was just telling these guys. So you bring in the lady who played Jan on that show, she'd fit right in.
but no, I also feel like um but like now if we're gender swapping, like I like now as in terms of like a really like demanding, like sleazy boss, like I'm thinking of Tilda Swinton's character in Trainwreck.
You know what's funny? I was thinking Emma Thompson. I
Oh.
I feel like that would be interesting. I'd let her take me back to the
Whoa. Take the jacket off.
Yes. But how we always love to give our little spin on this. Are we taking Cece and Fran to Applebee's?
I'd take them to Applebee's.
I think so.
They're going to be a fun time. So
Not
we're
Mr.
definitely going to
Sheldrick.
Applebee's. What, Kevin?
We are not taking Mr. Sheldrick with us.
No, he could go back to that Asian food restaurant and he could go be a dick there.
You can go to Denny's. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I don't have any issue with Denny's. I just made a joke.
We here at the Development Hell Podcast and the Movie Club do not have any adverse feelings towards Denny's, but if Denny's wants to sponsor us and offer us money, we'd be more than happy to take it. But
Promo in the description, right, Shane? Like,
but from also, why hasn't Applebee's given us a sponsorship yet?
you gotta put
Come
it
now.
tags. You know what I mean? The hashtag of it.
We got to add Applebee's whenever we share one of these episodes. But from Vinny and Matt and Jim and Kevin and Joe, who had to leave a little early, and from Shane, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Development Hell Podcast.